In the Lost Canvas, the Pisces saint became more than beautiful. He was the underworld's nightmare. Cursed from birth, Albafica lived alone and made his body a weapon. His blood kills and his determination was enough to do something unthinkable: humiliate a judge of the underworld. Hello, knights and Amazons. As you already know, I am Wes. In today's video, you'll discover how the Gold Saint showed that true Pisces pride isn't about beauty. This is one of the most intense, emotional, and honestly most brutal stories in the entire Saint Seiya universe. Shirita Shiroki's work retold the holy war of the 18th century and gifted us with a man who redeemed the Pisces constellation forever. Click like, subscribe, and let's start this awesome video. Curiosity number 1. The solitary guardian of the 12th house. Imagine a warrior so lethal that his own blood is a poison, capable of melting an enemy's flesh. A man who lived in absolute isolation to protect those he loved, and who alone faced one of the 3 supreme commanders of Hades' army. Albafica wasn't just a gold saint, he was the sanctuary's biological weapon. In the hierarchy of the 12 houses in the 18th century, he held the position of final guardian, the user of that era, led by the great master Seiya. It was a far more organized military fortress than those of the modern era. Albafica was regarded with fear and respect by his peers. While knights like Hasgard of Taurus or Regulus of Leo were sociable figures, Albafica was a constant shadow. His presence in the last house was not only strategic because of the Rose Garden, but also because he was the last resort. If an enemy got past him, only the statue of Athena would remain. Curiosity 2. The curse of poisonous blood. Unlike other knights who acquire abilities only through training, Albafica's lethality is in his DNA. Since he was very young, he was exposed to toxins that turned his blood into a deadly chemical compound. This is what, in the universe of De los Chicambas, we call an immune body. However, this immunity came at a terrible price. He became a transmitter. A simple cut on his skin could release fat, blood fruits that would instantly kill any normal human. That's why he even avoided the wind, fearing that his scent or microparticles of his blood could harm the inhabitants of Rodorio's life, which was near the sanctuary. Curiosity number 3. The Crimson Link Ritual. Many people think that Master Albafica just trained him, but the truth is much darker and more poetic. The predecessor of Pisces, Rugones, performed the ritual known as the Crimson Link with Albafica. For years, master and disciple exchanged drops of blood through small pricks on their fingers. The goal was to pass on resistance to poison and the very toxicity itself from one generation to the next. This process is excruciating, and eventually, the one with the less toxic blood ends up dying from exposure to the stronger blood. Rugones knew he would die so that Albafica could inherit a Pisces mantle. It was a succession based on pain and brotherly love. Fun fact 4. Rugones of Pisces. Albafica's father, Rugones, was more than a mentor. He was the only one who could touch Albafica without gloves or protection. He had cared for the boy since infancy, having found Albafica as an abandoned baby in a garden of demonic roses. Most children would have died in minutes, but little Albafica survived. Rugones, oddly drawn to poison, viewed it as destiny. He had a big heart and shared his disciples' loneliness. When Rugones finally passed away in Albafica's arms, due to the Crimson Bond, he died smiling, saying that his disciple had finally surpassed him in beauty and power. Curiosity 5. Pisces' Deadly Beauty. Albafica is often called one of the most handsome knights of his era, rivaling even Alonio, the vessel of Hades. However, he despised his own beauty. To him, his handsome face was just a mask that hid the poisonous monster he believed himself to be. He used his appearance to lower his enemy's guard. Spectres underestimated Albafica for his gentle affection, only to discover too late he was the Zodiac's deadliest predator. He didn't fight for beauty, he fought to prove that his soul was what really mattered. Curiosity number 6. The Garden of Royal Demon Roses. The path between the House of Pisces and Athena's temple is covered by the royal demon roses. These flowers aren't natural. They're extensions of the Pisces saint's cosmos. In Albafica's temple, these roses were kept under strict control. They emit pollen that paralyzes the senses and causes death by asphyxiation. Albafica was able to manipulate the blooming of these roses from a distance, creating deadly labyrinths for any intruder. More than just a technique, the garden was a living, negative ecosystem that responded to the cosmos of the night. Curiosity number 7. As SE. The red roses were for a silent death, the piranha roses, the black ones, were for total annihilation. Albafica used them to destroy the Spectre's armors, unlike the classic version where the roses only break the armor. In the Lost Canvas, we see that they act like high-density projectiles, piercing the metal of Hades' armors as if they were paper. Albafica demonstrated terrifying precision, being able to hit the vital points of multiple enemies simultaneously with a single burst of these dark flowers. Curiosity number 8. The final white rose, the ultimate technique known as the bloody rose, is the attack that never misses its target. Once fired, the white rose pierces the enemy's heart and drains all their blood until it turns red. In Albafica's case, this technique had an even more dangerous variant. Since his own blood was poisonous, he could infuse the white rose with his own toxins, ensuring that even if the enemy had superhuman physical resistance, they would die poisoned from the inside out. This technique ultimately sealed the fate of an underworld judge. Curiosity number 9. Albafica's exclusive technique, the Crimson Thorns. Unlike Aphrodite from the classic era, Albafica developed a unique ability called Crimson Thorns. He uses blood from his thorns, pores, or wounds to create thousands of poisonous needles. Suspended in the air by the command of his cosmos, these needles would fly toward his opponent. It's a sacrificial technique, because the more he used it, the more blood he lost. This shows the level of determination of Albafica. He was literally willing to bleed himself dry to ensure Athena's victory. Curiosity number 10. Albafica faces Minos of Griffin. Minos of Griffin is one of the most sadistic characters in the entire franchise. As one of the underworld's 3 judges, he had a cosmos rivaling the Gold Saints. When Minos invaded the sanctuary, he didn't expect Albafica to be the first Gold Saint he faced, who would become his worst nightmare. Minos used the Cosmic Marionette, a technique that manipulates energy threads linked to an opponent's joint nerves to break bones and twist limbs. As if the opponent were a rag doll, what Minos didn't count on was the psychological resilience. Curiosity number 11. The knight who resisted the Cosmic Marionette during the fight, Minos literally broke almost every bone in Albafica's body. It was a graphic and desperate scene. The judge of the underworld mocked the Pisces knight, calling him weak and futile. However, Albafica proved that a knight's strength doesn't come only from his muscles or bones, but from his cosmos and his will. Despite his destroyed body hanging by Minos' threads, Albafica never screamed in pain. That level of self-control genuinely disturbed the Griffin Spectre. Curiosity number 12. The humiliation of the judge of the underworld. Minos' humiliation was not just physical, it was moral. Minos was proud of being a master of cruelty, but Albafica treated him like an amateur. While Minos thought he was winning by destroying Albafica's body, the Pisces knight was actually setting a trap. He allowed Minos to get close to him, underestimating his deplorable state. At the final moment, Albafica used the blood he had spilled on the ground to create a poisonous mist, proving that, even on the brink of death, he was the one who held control of the battle. Curiosity number 13. The final sacrifice. In the village of Rodorio, the battle didn't just take place in the 12 houses, but also in the surroundings of Rodorio village. Albafica protected the villagers, especially young Gatia, who admired him when Minos launched a devastating attack. Albafica used his last energy to contain the attack. Knowing he wouldn't survive, he prepared a white rose soaked in his poisonous blood, and during a distraction, stabbed it into Minos' chest. The judge of the underworld, who thought he was untouchable, died, feeling Albafica's poison running through his veins, realizing too late that he had been defeated by a man he called a fragile rose. Curiosity number 14. The forbidden touch Albafica was. She was a villager who saw beyond his curse. In one of the most emotional moments, she tries to get close to him, and he pushes her away, not out of hatred, but out of pure care. After Albafica's death, Zion of Ares, his comrade in arms, retrieves the Pisces knight's body. The legacy of Albafica remained alive in the hearts of those villagers. turning the fear they felt for the poisonous knight into eternal gratitude. He was the first gold knight to fall in the holy war of Delos Chicanvas, and his death rallied the others. Curiosity 15. Comparison with Aphrodite of Pisces. You can't discuss Albafica without referencing Aphrodite, the classic era Pisces. Although both use roses, their philosophies are opposite. Aphrodite believed that strength is justice, and that the Grand Master Saga should be followed because he was the strongest. Albafica, on the other hand, believed in protecting the weak at any cost, while Aphrodite flaunted his beauty as proof of his superiority. Albafica saw it as a burden, and this duality makes him beloved by fans. He added heroism and tragedy to the Pisces sign, changing how pop culture views the constellation. Fun fact number 16. The legacy of Shiori Cherokee, the author of Delos Chicanvas, had a special care for Albafica. In extra chapters and guidance, which are the side stories, we learn more about his missions. Before the Holy War, he faced minor gods and other specters, always dealing with the dilemma of wanting to save people but not being able to touch them. These stories show that Albafica was not just a warrior of a single battle. He was a deeply melancholic man who found in the gold cloth the only family and purpose he could have without hurting anyone. Curiosity number 17. The Knight of Solitude. Finally, Albafica is remembered as the warrior who blossomed where nothing else could grow. His life was a desert of isolation, but he turned that desert into a garden that protected the world. He didn't defeat with brute power alone, but with a strength of spirit that the judge in his divine arrogance could never understand. Albafica proved that being a pride of Pisces has nothing to do with vanity, but with the ability to bear the poison of the world, so others can breathe clean air. What did you think of this journey through Albafica of Pisces' life? It's hard not to be moved by the story of a man who gave his life to prove that his soul was much more than the poison running through his veins. He is undoubtedly one of the best written characters in Saint Seiya and shows that true power comes from sacrifice and loyalty. Comment which gold saint from the classic saga you think could rival Albafica. Thanks for watching until the end. See you next time. Burn your infinite Cosmotel.